What did you say? They took her?
Dimitri's chest constricted as fear clawed its way up his throat. He snatched his keys from the marble counter, the metal biting into his palm, and bolted toward the door. His footsteps echoed through the penthouse like thunder as he ran, every second stretching into an eternity. The elevator seemed to mock him with its leisurely descent, each floor a lifetime. The moment the doors opened, he exploded into the lobby and into the night, his engine roaring to life as Seoul's neon lights blurred into streaks of panic. Meanwhile, Zara stirred in darkness. A dull, throbbing pain pulsed through her skull, sharp enough to make her wince. Her eyelids fluttered open to nothing but shadows, and the oppressive smell of damp concrete mixed with rust. She tried to move, only to feel coarse rope biting into her wrists, her arms wrenched painfully behind her back. Something wet and sticky pressed against her forehead. A makeshift bandage, soaked with her own blood. Her breath came in shallow gasps. "Hello?" Her voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. "Is anyone there?" Silence swallowed her words whole. "Help me!" she screamed, her throat burning with the effort. "Please, somebody help me." Nothing answered except the hollow echo of her own desperation and the frantic pounding of her heart against her ribs. A phone call sliced through Dimitri's concentration like a blade. An unknown number flashed across the dashboard display, its shrill ring filling the car's interior. He'd barely left the office when instinct made him answer. "Kang Dimitri," a voice rasped, cold and venomous. "If you want her breathing by morning, bring everything. Bank accounts, property titles, business shares. Every document that proves you own anything. You have 3 hours." Dimitri's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "Who is this?" A dry laugh crackled through the speaker. "You know exactly who I am. Come alone. If you try anything clever, I'll slit her throat before you reach the door." His chest tightened until breathing hurt. "Zara, what could you possibly want with her?" "I just told you," the voice hissed. "Everything you own. Bring it to this address." A text appeared instantly on his screen. "Coordinates for an abandoned factory in the industrial district east of the river. If you're late," the voice added with casual cruelty, "I'll send you pieces of her as a reminder that I don't bluff." The line went dead. For a moment, Dimitri sat frozen, his heartbeat hammering against his ribs like a prisoner trying to escape. He replayed the voice in his mind. Vaughn Meredith. Of course. His phone felt heavy in his damp palm as he threw it onto the passenger seat and slammed his foot on the accelerator. Tires shrieked against asphalt as the Range Rover shot through the night like a bullet. He reached Zara's apartment building in record time, his memory of the drive a blur of red lights and near misses. The door stood slightly ajar, a detail that sent ice through his veins. He pushed it open slowly. The apartment smelled faintly of vanilla and children's soap, but the silence was all wrong. Too still, too empty. "Zara?" he called, his voice echoing down the narrow hallway. "Amara? Zuri?" No response. He moved quickly through each room. The twins' bedroom was unnaturally tidy, their beds made with military precision as if no one had slept there. Their favourite toys sat arranged on shelves like museum pieces. His stomach dropped. "They're gone. Damn it," he muttered, dragging a hand through his hair. "This is my fault. I should have protected them better." Behind him the door opened. Gregor, his second in command, stepped inside with 2 men in dark suits flanking him. "Boss," Gregor said, lowering his phone. "We traced the call. Vaughn's signal is bouncing from the eastern factory district, but we also picked up a secondary trail heading toward the Cheonggycheon stream." "Could be the children." Dimitri's head snapped toward him. "The twins! Are they safe?" "We can't confirm yet," Gregor said carefully, "but my team can track them. You can't be in 2 places at once." Dimitri hesitated, his heart tearing in opposite directions. Zara was in Vaughn's hands, possibly minutes from death. But his daughters, his own flesh and blood, were somewhere out there unprotected. Gregor stepped closer, his voice steady. "Let us find the girls. You go to Zara. She needs you alive, and she needs you now. We'll update you the moment we locate the children." For a heartbeat, Dmitri couldn't move. Every instinct screamed to protect everyone. But Gregor was right. If Vaughn killed Zara, there would be no negotiating, no future. His jaw clenched. "Find them. No mistakes." Gregor bowed slightly. "Understood, boss. We'll bring your daughters home." Dmitri turned and stormed out, his chest burning with a toxic mixture of fury and terror. The factory district loomed like a graveyard of steel and broken dreams. Rusted machinery stood frozen against the night sky, their silhouettes jagged against the sickly glow of sodium lights. Dmitri parked 2 blocks away and stepped out into the biting wind. Every muscle in his body hummed with controlled rage. He could almost hear Zara's voice in his head, her quiet laughter, the way she'd looked at him with a mixture of defiance and vulnerability that had haunted him for 5 years. The memory only sharpened his resolve. Inside the factory, a single harsh spotlight burned against the darkness, its beam illuminating a rusted metal chair in the center of the cavernous space. Zara sat bound to it, her wrists lashed with thick rope. A blood-soaked bandage wrapped around her head, crimson seeping through the fabric. Her eyes fluttered open at the sound of approaching footsteps. Dmitri. Her voice was barely a whisper, raw with fear and hope. But the man who stepped into the light wasn't Dmitri. "Kyle," she breathed, confusion flooding her features. The familiar face of the kind neighbor who'd offered her rides and carried her groceries now seemed wrong. His posture was different, his eyes glinting with something predatory and cold. "Are you here to help me?" she asked, a tremor of hope in her voice. The man smiled slowly, deliberately, a smile that held no warmth. "Oh, Zara," he said softly, almost affectionately. "Help you? Why would I do that?" Her confusion deepened into something darker. "I don't understand." He stepped closer, his boots echoing like gunshots against the concrete floor. "You always looked at me like I was safe, the quiet helper next door. But safe men don't build empires on blood and fear, do they?" Zara's breath quickened. "What are you talking about?" The man tilted his head. Then, with unnerving calm, he reached up and began peeling away his hairline. Zara gasped as dark hair came away in his hand, revealing it to be an elaborate wig. Beneath it, a shaved scalp gleamed under the spotlight, marked with an intricate tattoo of a coiled serpent that wrapped around his skull like a crown of violence. "No," she whispered. He wiped away the last traces of theatrical makeup, revealing a face sharper and crueler than she'd ever seen. The friendly lines were gone, replaced by the hard angles of a predator. "My real name," he said, his voice low and lethal, "is Vaughn Meredith." The name hit her like a physical blow. Her breath caught in her throat. This was the man Dmitri had warned her about in fragments of conversation she'd overheard. The ghost in the shadows. The ruthless enemy of the Kim triad. "You," her voice trembled. "You were pretending this entire time." "Pretending is an art form, Zara," Vaughn said with a cruel grin. "And you're my masterpiece. So trusting, so easy to manipulate." Zara pulled at the ropes, panic rising like floodwater in her chest. "What do you want from me?" He crouched until his face hovered inches from hers. "Leverage," he whispered. "And revenge." Her pulse hammered against her skin. "Dmitri destroyed my organization's foothold in this city," Vaughn continued, his tone ice-cold and deliberate. "He thinks he's untouchable. But even kings bleed when you find the right weapon. You, my dear, are that weapon." Outside, the faint crunch of gravel broke the oppressive silence. Vaughn straightened, a predator catching the scent of his prey. His lips curved into a deadly smile. "Right on schedule," he murmured. Zara's heart leapt. Dmitri. A heavy metal door screeched open on rusted hinges. Dmitri strode in, a tall figure carved in shadow and fury against the harsh light. His black coat flared with each measured step, the shadows sharpening the rage etched across his face. Vaughn, his voice cracked like thunder. Let her go. Vaughn clapped slowly, mockingly. Ah, the great Kang Dimitri arrives. Did you bring my gifts? Dimitri's eyes never left Zara's face. If you've harmed her, he started, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. She's alive for now, Vaughn interrupted, tilting his head. Documents, accounts, every asset you own. Place them at my feet, and maybe I'll consider mercy. Dimitri's jaw tightened. You know that's not happening. Vaughn's grin sharpened. Then perhaps I'll start with her fingers. Maybe you'll reconsider after you hear her scream. Zara flinched, biting back a cry. Dimitri stepped forward, his voice low and deadly. Touch her, and I'll end you before you can draw another breath. The room thickened with tension. Vaughn's eyes gleamed, enjoying the challenge. Such confidence, he sneered. But tell me, Dimitri, do you really think you can save her and keep your empire? Tonight, you lose one or both. He drew a small blade from his coat, the steel glinting wickedly under the harsh light. Dimitri's fingers twitched toward the weapon concealed beneath his jacket. Zara's heart pounded like a drum of impending doom. Inside the factory, the air felt electrified, ready to ignite at the slightest spark. Dust particles floated in the dim light, each one trembling as if anticipating violence. Dimitri's eyes locked with Zara's, a silent vow passing between them. Hold on. I'm here. Vaughn raised the knife, the blade catching the light like a shard of frozen lightning. His lips curved into a mocking smile. Shall we begin? He asked, his voice smooth and cruel. Zara shook her head frantically, her hair whipping across her face. Panic clawed at her throat. She didn't understand all the politics and history, but she knew she didn't want blood spilled because of her. Please, she pleaded, her voice breaking. Don't. Put the blade down. But Vaughn moved before the words fully left her mouth. The knife flashed, lunging toward Dimitri with deadly precision. Zara gasped and squeezed her eyes shut, certain the strike had found its mark. A sharp metallic clang split the air. When she dared to look, Dimitri's hand was clamped around Vaughn's wrist, stopping the blade inches from his chest. Muscles strained, veins standing out as he twisted hard. The knife spun free, clattering across the floor. Not today, Dimitri hissed through gritted teeth, a dangerous smirk crossing his face. In a heartbeat, he kicked the weapon toward Zara. The steel skidded to a stop beside her shoe. Vaughn snarled and swung a fist. Dimitri ducked, driving his own punch into Vaughn's ribs with brutal force. The impact echoed like a gunshot. Vaughn staggered but came back swinging, their movements becoming a blur of fists, elbows, and raw fury. Dimitri's fist cracked against Vaughn's jaw with a sickening thud, blood spraying across the dusty floor. Vaughn's body snapped sideways and crashed onto the concrete. A sudden buzz cut through the heavy air. Dimitri's phone vibrating in his pocket, he yanked it out, breath ragged, and pressed it to his ear. Boss? Gregor's voice trembled on the other end, fading like a dying echo. Gregor, Dimitri barked, frowning at the weakening signal. What's wrong? Then he froze. A cold burn spread across his abdomen. He glanced down and saw the hilt of a knife buried deep in his side, crimson already soaking through his shirt. Gregor's voice cracked. The twins. The line went dead. Dimitri's eyes widened. Gregor! Gregor! A low, broken laugh rolled across the factory floor. Vaughn pushed himself upright, blood streaking his chin, his grin feral despite his injuries. Oh, you think you've won? He sneered, limping closer. After you destroyed everything I built, you really think I'd let you walk away? What will you do about those little girls now? Who will you save? Dimitri's chest tightened, confusion and fury battling inside him. He lunged forward, grabbed Vaughn by the collar and yanked him nose to nose. Leave her children out of this, you bastard, Dimitri growled, his voice rough with rage. He drew his fist back, ready to smash it into Vaughn's face again. Stop, Vaughn hissed, tilting his blood-slick head with a sly smile. Slowly he jerked his chin first towards Zara, then back at Dimitri. The silent threat in that small gesture cut sharper than any blade. Vaughn tilted his head, a wicked gleam flashing in his eyes. "Wait, don't tell me you haven't figured it out yet," he said, then burst into manic laughter that echoed through the factory. "Those twins," he sneered, tapping a blood-stained finger against his temple, "are your biological children, you idiot." Zara's breath caught. Her eyes went wide, shimmering with panic as if the world had just collapsed beneath her feet. She had never told Dimitri. Her lashes fluttered uncontrollably, and she couldn't bring herself to look up at him. "I know," Dimitri said flatly. Vaughn's grin faltered. He searched Dimitri's face for shock, for hurt, for anything to feed on, but found only cold steadiness. Dimitri raised an eyebrow, his voice like a razor's edge. "I'm not a fool like you. I knew those girls were mine the moment I calculated their age. I was just waiting for Zara to tell me the truth herself." "That's all, you pathetic liar." Before Vaughn could spit another word, Dimitri's fist shot forward with brutal force. The punch smashed into Vaughn's face with a wet crack, jerking his head back and spraying blood across the concrete. Vaughn staggered, but Dimitri wasn't finished. Grabbing his collar, Dimitri spun and hurled him to the floor. Vaughn hit the concrete hard, the sound of impact ringing like a gunshot through the cold factory. Guilt knifed through Zara as the weight of her secrets settled over her like a shroud. She had known deep down that Dimitri would eventually figure it out. He deserved to know the twins were his. Yet she'd chosen silence, hiding the truth behind walls of fear and uncertainty. Dimitri crouched in front of her, his expression softening despite the chaos. "Are you okay?" he asked, his eyes sharp with concern. Before she could think, Zara leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was desperate, trembling with regret and relief. "The girls," she whispered against his mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Dimitri brushed his thumb gently across her wet skin, a brief tenderness flashing before his face hardened again. He rose and strode toward Vaughn, fury tightening every step. "Where are the girls?" Dimitri barked, seizing Vaughn by the collar and slamming him against a pillar. He drove a brutal punch into Vaughn's face, the crack of impact echoing through the factory. "Where the hell are they?" he roared. Vaughn only groaned, his lips curling in a bloody defiant smile. "Check his pockets for his phone," Zara said, her voice shaking but urgent. Dimitri shoved Vaughn back and plunged a hand into his jacket. Vaughn jerked and grabbed for the device, but Dimitri yanked it high out of reach. His eyes scanned the screen, thumb flying over messages until one stood out. "Sent earlier that day. An address." "Found it," he said, his voice a deadly promise. Dimitri slammed one last punch into Vaughn's jaw, the crack echoing like a final verdict. Vaughn slumped against the pillar, blood dripping from his split lip. Dimitri turned away, phone still in hand, a number glowed beneath the address. The sender. Familiar? Too familiar. He hesitated, a flicker of recognition tugging at his memory, but there was no time to unravel it now. He forced the thought aside and strode toward Zara. She struggled to stand, but he swept her into his arms with quiet urgency. Her weight settled against his chest, her trembling fingers gripping his coat. Their eyes met, hers wide with fear, his burning with determination. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that fragile connection. Then Vaughn's shout ripped through the heavy air. "Hey, Dimitri!" Dimitri spun just as Vaughn, bloodied but grinning, raised a gun with a shaky hand. The trigger snapped. "No!" Zara's cry cut through the factory as she threw herself against Dimitri, wrapping her arms around him. The gunshot thundered. A sharp, sickening crack followed. Zara's body jerked in his hold, her breath catching in a strangled gasp. Warm blood splattered across Dimitri's shirt. Her head tilted back, eyes wide with pain as dark red trickled from the corner of her mouth. "Zara," Dimitri's roar tore from his throat, raw and desperate as her body went limp in his arms. "The girls." Zara's voice trembled like a fading echo before her eyes fluttered shut completely. "Number." Zara. Dimitri's heart seized, panic tearing through him like wildfire. A crimson haze clouded his vision, his eyes burning with furious intensity. He scooped her into his arms and bolted outside, every step pounding with desperation. The night air hit like ice, but he barely registered it. He laid her gently in the passenger seat, his hands slick with her blood, and slammed the door shut. The engine roared to life. Tires screamed against the asphalt as he shot onto the road, blowing past traffic lights and ignoring blaring horns. Cars swerved, brakes screeched. None of it registered. His mind was a storm of rage and fear, every thought locked on Zara's pale face and his daughter's unknown fate. He snatched his phone and dialed the only person he could think of, Iris, someone who had medical connections. The line rang and rang. No answer. "Pick up," he snarled, slamming his palm against the steering wheel. He tried again. Nothing. A roar of frustration ripped from his chest. He hurled the phone against the dashboard, the device shattering into jagged pieces. The screen went dark. His second in command was dead. His girlfriend wouldn't answer. The silence on every lifeline carved a brutal truth into his chest. He was utterly, crushingly alone. He skidded into the hospital parking lot, brakes screaming as the car jolted to a stop. Dimitri jumped out, scooped Zara into his arms again, and burst through the sliding doors. Nurses shouted, rushing forward as he bellowed for help. Blood smeared across the gleaming floor with every frantic step. As the doctors wheeled Zara away on a gurney, Dimitri barely glanced after her. The only thing burning in his mind was the address on Vaughan's phone. Cheongyecheon Stream. He sprinted back to the car and gunned the engine, tires shrieking against the asphalt. Every second felt like an eternity as the city blurred past his windows, headlights streaking like ghosts in the darkness. Please let them be safe, he thought, the prayer repeating in his mind like a mantra. When he finally reached the stream, he slammed the brakes so hard the car fishtailed on the gravel path. He jumped out, chest heaving, eyes sweeping the dark landscape, and froze. Two small figures splashed in the shallow water, their laughter carrying through the quiet night like wind chimes. "Daddy Dimitri!" The twins shouted in unison when they spotted him. Their little feet kicked up sprays of water as they dashed toward him, faces lit with pure excitement. They collided against his legs, wrapping their tiny arms around him. Dimitri dropped to his knees and gathered them close, the sharp sting of relief nearly buckling him. His hands trembled as he held them, drinking in the warmth of their small bodies pressed against him. Amara tipped her head back, eyes wide with innocent expectation. "She said Mommy would be here," she chirped, glancing left and right at the empty stream bank. "Where is Mommy?" Dimitri drew a long, shuddering breath. He ran a blood-streaked hand through his hair, pushing it back as he exhaled heavily. His heart pounded, torn between the desperate need to reassure them and the raw fear tightening in his chest. "You two are okay, right?" Dimitri dropped fully to his knees, scanning their small bodies with frantic eyes. His hands hovered over their arms and faces, searching for any sign of bruises or cuts. Nothing. Not a single mark. A sharp breath escaped him, half relief, half disbelief. He pulled them both into a crushing hug, their tiny frames warm against his chest. For the first time in years, tears pricked his eyes, hot and unstoppable. He tried to blink them back, but the flood wouldn't stop. "Daddy, are you crying?" Zuri's soft voice broke through the night. She tilted her head, her sharp little eyes studying his face with wisdom far beyond her years. Dimitri gave a small, shaky shake of his head, but the wetness on his cheeks betrayed him. "Do adults cry too?" Amara piped up, her voice curious and loud. "The nice lady with glasses said men don't cry." Despite the ache in his chest, a quiet laugh slipped from Dimitri. He ruffled Amara's hair, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Then that lady was wrong," he murmured, shaking his head. "Even strong men cry sometimes." The twins giggled, their innocence a fragile light in the heavy darkness surrounding them. For a fleeting moment, Dimitri let himself breathe, holding them tighter as if he could keep the world's dangers away through sheer will alone. Days blurred into nights as Dmitri kept his silent vigil at the hospital. Zara remained unconscious, her face pale against the crisp white sheets, machines beeping steadily beside her bed. Every time he stepped into the room, a quiet storm brewed inside him. Fear, anger, and maddening helplessness. He left nothing to chance. 30 of his men were stationed across the hospital grounds. 5 of them posted permanently in the hallway outside her room. Anyone who came near was checked and questioned. He couldn't risk another surprise attack. Whenever the twins asked about their mother, Dmitri forced a gentle smile and the same careful answer. "Mommy is resting," he would say, brushing their hair back with steady hands. "She'll wake up soon." They believed him for now, but one question haunted him relentlessly. Who had brought them safely to the stream? Each time he asked, the twins gave the same reply. "A lady with glasses," they said in cheerful unison. "She was very nice to us. No name, no details, just a mystery wrapped in kindness." Meanwhile, Vaughan had vanished. Every lead Dmitri chased dissolved into nothing, like smoke slipping through his fingers. The man had connections deeper than anyone had anticipated. One quiet evening, as Dmitri sat at the dining table helping the twins with their homework, Zuri suddenly looked up, her sharp eyes glimmering with curiosity. "Are you our real papa?" she asked softly. Dmitri froze mid-sentence, a pencil poised between his fingers. A low chuckle escaped him as he set the pencil down carefully. "Why do you ask?" he said, keeping his tone light. "Because Amara looks exactly like you," Zuri replied, her little brow furrowing with determination. "Don't lie to us. Are you our real papa? Because we don't mind if you are." Amara nodded enthusiastically beside her, her eyes bright with hope. Dimitri's chest tightened, a mixture of warmth and ache spreading through him as he looked at their eager faces. "Yes," Dmitri said quietly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I am. I knew it." Zuri clapped her small hands together and beamed. "See? I'm always right. I can't wait until Mommy wakes up so I can tell her. How dare she keep it from us?" She folded her little arms across her chest in mock outrage. "Don't do that," Dmitri said gently, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Mommy didn't keep it from you. She didn't know how to tell anyone." "That's a lie, Daddy." Zuri squinted at him, her sharp little eyes narrowing skeptically. Before he could answer, she pounced, giggling as her tiny fingers dug into his sides. "Liar! Liar!" she squealed, tickling him until his laughter broke free despite himself. For a moment, the room was filled only with their laughter, the heavy weight of secrets lifting just enough to let light through. Days later, Dmitri stood in the grey stillness of a cemetery, the earth freshly turned where Gregor now rested. Beside him stood Iris, her dark sunglasses reflecting the dull sky. Her presence felt hollow, unwelcome. "Iris," he said, his voice low. "I've enjoyed our time together, but it's time for us to part ways." Iris tilted her head, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Are you breaking up with me?" He nodded once, his expression unchanging. "At least give me a reason," she pressed, her tone sharpening. "Why end it now?" "Because," he hesitated, the words heavy in his chest. "Because I have children I never knew about, children who need me, and their mother needs me too. I have to be there for them." Iris let out a scoff, her arms crossing tightly. "Do you even hear yourself? You should be ashamed." "I don't care," Dmitri said firmly, meeting her eyes. "All I want is to spend the rest of my life with her. With them." He paused, something flickering in the corner of his vision. The sunglasses perched on Iris's face, sleek, distinctive, looked painfully familiar. His mind flashed back to the drawing Amara had made of the mysterious lady who brought them to the stream. The glasses were identical. Dimitri's breath caught, a chill crawling down his spine as the pieces began sliding into place. "Where were you last week?" "Tuesday," Dmitri asked, his voice low but cutting. "I remember calling you multiple times, but you refused to pick up." "Where were you that day?" Iris blinked, her lips parting in quick defense. What? What are you talking about? Didn't I apologize already? I told you my phone was on silent and I fell asleep. Dimitri's eyes narrowed, one brow lifting in quiet challenge. Is that so? Then you won't mind if I check the security footage from your apartment building? I should see you at home the whole time, right? The colour drained from her face. Her eyes flickered, darting side to side as a nervous tremor betrayed her. What? She snapped, her voice rising defensively. What are you trying to say? That I kidnapped the children? That I had something to do with Zara getting hurt? Dimitri let out a cold, slow smirk, the kind that made her stomach twist. Interesting, he said softly. I never mentioned Zara's kidnapping or the twins being taken. Iris's breath hitched. The silence that followed was deafening. That was the moment she realized she'd just exposed herself completely. She stayed silent, her eyes fixed on the ground, lips pressed tight. The weight of her silence told him everything he needed to know. A heavy sigh slipped from his chest, disappointment clouding his face as he straightened his shoulders. I better never see you near my businesses or my properties again, he said, his voice low but sharp enough to cut. Do you understand? I'm not calling the police, and you know why. You know how we handle things in this world. Got it? He adjusted the lapel of his suit with a careless shrug and turned to leave, his footsteps echoing across the cemetery. It's all your fault, she suddenly snapped, her voice slicing through the tense quiet. He froze mid-stride and slowly turned back, his eyes narrowing as they locked on her. I couldn't accept the fact that you were with a black woman, she blurted, her voice trembling between anger and heartbreak. I tried to process it, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Yes, Vaughn came to me and asked for my help. Even knowing the history you two share, I agreed when I realized it involved Zara and her children. I was supposed to hurt them. Her words cracked and she shook her head, eyes glossing with unshed tears. But I couldn't. They're just children. Sweet, loving children. They were so kind to me that I couldn't lay a hand on them. I thought Zara would be the one to come for them, so I could finish her once and for all. But when I saw you arriving instead, I had to back out. You stupid cheater. Dimitri lowered his head, a muscle ticking in his jaw as he stepped closer. I never cheated on you, he said quietly but firmly. We started dating 3 years ago. 3 years. Do the math. His words hung in the air like a slap. He exhaled sharply, rolling his eyes in frustration, and turned away. Without another glance, he strode off, his footsteps heavy with finality, leaving her crumpled and sobbing in the silence he left behind. Dimitri received the news with a sharp jolt of grim satisfaction. Vaughn had finally been captured. The twist came like cruel irony. He was caught at the very hospital where Zara was recovering, attempting one final act of revenge. Justice was swift and merciless. Vaughn's own associates showed no loyalty, ending his reign of chaos before the authorities could even arrive. Iris didn't ask for forgiveness. She packed her bags quietly and left the city without a word. Dimitri didn't stop her. He had warned her to stay away, and now her absence meant nothing to him. When Zara finally opened her eyes, weak but awake, the first words that tumbled from her lips were not about her pain, but about her children. My girls, she whispered, her voice barely stronger than a breath. Where are my girls? They're safe, Dimitri assured her gently, his eyes softening as he took her hand. They can't wait to see you. Tears welled in her eyes, a shaky smile breaking through her exhaustion. I'm sorry, Dimitri said quietly, his voice rough with regret. He took her hand, gently rubbing his thumb over her knuckles as if to ease every past hurt. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better. Zara shook her head, her eyes shining with emotion. You did everything you could, Dimitri. Don't apologize for something beyond your control. She took a shaky breath, her lips trembling. I should be the one saying sorry for keeping the girls from you all these years. They stared at each other for a long, silent moment, the air between them warm and full of unspoken feelings. Slowly they leaned closer. Their foreheads touched first, a quiet promise, before their lips met in a gentle kiss that grew deeper, carrying forgiveness and the hope of a new beginning. Days later, when Zara was discharged, her children rushed to her side, their little arms wrapping around her in a storm of love and questions. "Mommy, why aren't you going to work?" Zuri asked, tugging at her sleeve. "Why are you so skinny now?" Amara piped up, eyes wide as they noticed the bandage on her forehead. Zara laughed softly, brushing their hair back with trembling fingers. "It's nothing," she said with a playful wink. "I just had a little accident and got too busy to eat properly." "Mommy's fine now. Daddy Dimitri said he's our real daddy." "Is that true?" Amara asked, her voice filled with hopeful anticipation. Zara pulled them close and gave a little laugh, her heart swelling. "Did he really tell you that?" They both nodded vigorously, their eyes bright with excitement. "Then he's absolutely right," Zara confirmed, her voice warm with emotion. The children squealed with pure joy, jumping up and down with excitement. For their safety and to start their new life together, they all moved into Dimitri's expansive home, where security and warmth wrapped around them like an unbreakable promise. Life slowly bloomed again, like flowers after a long winter. Dimitri spoiled them with weekend outings, shopping trips to the markets, playground adventures that lasted until sunset, and quiet family dinners that turned into late-night laughter and storytelling. The twins flourished in their new environment, their rooms decorated with everything they'd ever dreamed of, their days filled with love they'd never known was missing. In time, love settled where fear once lived, filling every corner with light and possibility. Dimitri and Zara stood before family and friends in a beautiful ceremony overlooking the Han River, exchanging vows that sealed not just their hearts, but the new life they had fought so desperately hard to protect. Zara wore a dress that made her look like she was wrapped in moonlight, and Dimitri couldn't take his eyes off her. The twins stood beside them as flower girls, beaming with pride as they watched their parents promise forever to each other. And so they built a future together, strong, joyful, and unshakable, living the happily ever after they had once only dared to dream about in the darkest moments. The penthouse that had once been a cold fortress of glass and steel became a home filled with children's laughter, morning pancakes, bedtime stories, and the kind of love that transforms everything it touches. And that's a wrap on this incredible journey. Episode 3 marks the end of our story, but what a story it's been. Thank you so much for watching and supporting this journey from start to finish. Your love and engagement truly mean the world to us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Afro-Korean Tales, because there are plenty more adventures on the way that you won't want to miss. I'd also love to know where you're watching from and what your favourite moments were throughout this entire series. Share them in the comments below. I read every single one. Thank you again for being part of the Afro-Korean Tales family. Until next time, keep believing in love that conquers all.